something. It was under 500,000 2019. It's a pre and post era comparison to the pandemic. And in the last 2 years, it's been well over 1 million, a little short of 1.5 million. So that number tells you that's it's an absolute number. It doesn't give you detail, that absolute number, but tells you of the challenges being faced. And increasingly that could be faced in the era where intelligence, data processing comes into hands of everybody. So that includes companies and that includes people who are trying to make some wrong use of that. So with that larger picture, so we'll talk about AI, and you can use that to get that phone on silent as well, please, if you can, please. So we'll talk of AI, we'll talk of security, and we'll try and also talk about some of the enterprise search part of it, which is something that we're also trying to understand as it unfolds for enterprises, large enterprises in particular, what it means. So my first question, and Saurabh, if I may start with you and talk about the business case. Are we ready for, or are we just warming up? Is this the opening, the batting is opening for, would you say that? Or are we just beginning to find what all we can do with applications that could come with so much of data that's available?
And especially, I think, in the context of Gen AI, right? Yeah, I think we were just discussing while we all were sitting. I think one of the biggest changes that tech industry is going through is what's happening right now through Gen AI. After what internet has done to us, and the way I see the data is being processed at a scale, it will change a lot of things the way we work upon. And while we are too bullish, I still believe that when I go and ask to many CIOs that, are you able to get any value out of it, the entire thing Gen AI? The answer that I've been getting, and this is all across India, is that when I see the potential of Gen AI, the way data is being processed, it is marvelous. The people say that our eyes are getting wide open. The way things are going to shape up in future, it's going to be amazing. But I think still we are in the early stages. I'll be very honest with you. I think there are certain things which people are still learning. If I just talk about how your generative AI, we talk in the context of OpenAI, ChatGPT is being used without understanding the data that is being keyed into the system is going to be used for training purposes as well. So data security threats are booming up. I think they're just becoming kind of something which we all have to be conscious of. Second, I think the way your models are going to be processed, a black box. A lot of time when you do something, the response hallucinate, and I think you get stuck. So you can't put your systems on complete autopilot mode. You have to basically have some kind of a manual intervention when things are not going. But the potential is at a different level altogether, and we are extremely bullish about it. As an organization, we have started using it in certain pockets where we see that this entire thing can be extremely useful. I think one of the areas that we were discussing is definitely customer service. In the content generation piece, you can widely use it. I think in the industry, this has started changing the way people have started generating content on the fly. But if you want to be using it in some kind of a serious application or for a serious area, I think you have to be conscious and cautious right now. It will evolve eventually. But the future is extremely bright, I must say that.
Okay, that's the larger context. Let's get to specific industries and financial services industries. Phani, I'd like to understand from you. Where do you see the applications coming? And what is driving, the every stage data that's generated because of AI kinds or AI-driven systems? What kind of opportunities is it opening for you?
See, it opens opportunities from multiple angles. I think the one that we're talking about, pretty much all industries, I think there is the element of you understanding the customer needs and serving them, right? So the whole aspect of customer service, I think immediately actually, especially the natural language element that has come into today's generative AI with the transformer technology. So that's really kind of starting to help organizations really scale very well to kind of meet lakhs of customers and their needs. I think that's one area that, regardless of the industry, I think it is going to become quite relevant as companies grow. Second aspect of it for us it would be, now, especially in the financial industry, fraud actually is a very interesting element. And see, the one interesting thing that's actually happening with Gen AI, right, as we were talking in the room, is the ability to connect disparate pieces of information to bring greater level of intelligence to the table, right? And that really kind of plays a very key and critical role, right, in actually kind of bringing in fraud preventive mechanisms kind of to the equation as you deliver more and more financial services to the table. The third aspect of it for us would be, not only from a customer service perspective, actually we are starting to build models and to really understand both from, we at Pine Labs, we have the POS machines and all of that, right? Using technology to really now predict actually when something could go wrong and actually pre-maintain, so these are some of the elements that we're actually kind of going into your prevention so that the customer experience with your product is much more seamless. And you're actually kind of interrupting it before actually something goes bad. You're servicing it upfront and things like that as well. Right?
Would you like to add to that? Because the industry is similar. Your perspective, what to expect as you build newer applications, find newer ways of doing things?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm part of Kardeko Group. I'm the CTO at Rupyy. And I think what we've done is we have leveraged AI in all facets of our consumer experience, of our consumer journeys online. And also, you can leverage AI internally for automating your internal operations and processes, especially to reduce stats a lot. I'll share some examples. We're in the fintech space. We're in the digital lending space. We give loans completely online, no paper forms to be filled. The only way you can build an amazing consumer experience is if you leverage AI. For example, when consumers are applying for a loan application, they have to upload their KYC documents, PAN and Aadhaar being the simplest of these documents. You can use AI to automatically infer data from these documents and pre-fill the loan application, which is a great consumer experience. You don't want consumers to fill 200 form fields while they're applying for a loan. You want them to almost give their name and phone number and then sort of approve their loan application. So those kind of consumer experience are actually possible, and we believe it's really only possible if you leverage AI very well, not just from the consumer. Online, we actually have built-in technologies to leverage some of the digital public infrastructure that the government of India provides, like account aggregator, where we are asking for consent for people's information, which they consent to share with us in order to underwrite a loan. Then we move internally. We are in the auto industry. We have to price cars before we buy them. And in order to price cars effectively, I think AI fits really well. We have an internal AI model that looks at the inspection report, looks at the condition of the car, looks at the make, model, variants of the car, and then prices it accordingly, looks at the images of the car, and that these kind of AI systems help us create an automated 360-degree video of the car that we're buying and we are listing online. So if you want to create great consumer experience and also give an amazing level of TAT and execution timelines, I think you really have to figure out pockets where AI is exceptional at, and then leverage AI in these pockets. Specifically answering Gen AI, we are very early in this space. This space is evolving every month rapidly. And I think just like what Phani and Saurabh also said, we are yet to see enterprise scale applications of generative AI. We are experimenting in pockets where customer service is automated through Gen AI, and our internal teams are using generative AI for their own processes and, let's say, content generation or even code generation. So we're at the level of experimentation at the moment.
Okay, so let's try and get it from you. And as Airtel, you know, 350 million customers, and actually more, you know, good that you pointed out. 350 million customers, what advantage do you have in terms of trying to run through models and trying to build something on a scale that some companies may find it difficult to do?
Yeah, I think I was just listening to some of the customer complaints when they call the call center. And there was a complaint on the customer is not able to understand the bill, because as the services are getting complicated, the bills also get complicated. So one of the use cases that we are experimenting with is how do we generate a summary of the bill so that the customer can understand what is it, right? It can help us tremendously to reduce the call on the call center. And this has to be done on scale, and it has to be done in real time, because there are so much of customers coming and talking to us. And another interesting use case, and it's not, I mean, we are trying to do this experimentation where we are saying when a customer calls, we need to understand what is it talking, that is speech to text. And then from that text transcript, can we find out the gist of the conversation and use that gist of the conversation to, let's say, cross-sell or upsell some other things. So we have done some experimentation in that, and it has given us some good results. But like others pointed out, that to bring it to the mainstream, we need to really be very careful on saying it cannot be unsupervised. So what the content that the generative AI is generating, you still need some kind of supervision so that we are protected and we don't spit out something which is not relevant for the people. So these two use cases, and obviously then developers keep experimenting with the code, and Microsoft has rolled out in the Copilot. So that's another area of interest, and people have been experimenting with that. So these are the things that we are doing.
Okay.
I just want to add, I mean, I do wonder most of us are having very similar use cases. In fact, we are doing the very similar thing. We have a huge contact center because we advise people on buying insurance. And the first use case, other than building a chat bot or driving the content out of generative AI, is the call summarization. So I spoke to someone yesterday. He was also doing the same thing. So I think this is becoming one useful case which people want to try, but they're still not confident of using in the mainstream. But
okay.
Very relevant use case.
So Himanshu, I think the customers that you may be talking to are slightly different. These are farmers or agri-associated people. So give us a sense of the experiments and the kind of experiences that you've had as a company speaking to them and driving some of their needs.
Yeah. So I'm from a agri-tech industry, so Crow Farm or Otipy. So we are a farm to fork company. We started in 2016. Basically, our model was similar, very simple. So in Growfords, we realized there is a lots of problem in fruits and vegetables. The reason is because this is a supply chain, is supply-based supply chain. This is not actually demand-based supply chain. So what is growing at the field, it's coming in the mandi, and if that someone is not buying, so that's a waste. So we think let's make it is a demand-driven supply chain. With the help of AI, we will gonna predict. So we started, so we were procuring from farmer and then directly delivered to consumer. Sorry, a retailer. But in late 2019, we shipped this model, and right now we are a B2B2C company. So what is this B2B2C? So what we realized, we removed the wastage from the supply chain, but still there is a wastage at a retailer end, because they were buying, and let's say something that is not, they are not able to sell, so that's a wastage at their end. And in Delhi, we were majorly operating in Delhi NCR when the weather is very hot in summers, so they have a lot of wastage. So we asked them, let's do one thing. We will give you a consumer app where you can ask your consumer to basically order your needs on our app, and then we will deliver you consumer-wise bag, and then you can deliver to consumer. So this is a model right now we are operating in. and how we are different from milk basket or big basket. So our customer segment is also very different. So with the help of these partners, we are able to service in loaning or maybe, so if you compare Delhi NCR, this is a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 and tier 4 city. You can divide the consumer in fact, the 4 segment. So the Delhi, the Gurgaon is a tier 1, and when you go in like West Delhi or some part of Noida or Ghaziabad, so that's, I will say, the tier 4, the type of user interface you need there is a tier 4. And on the other end side, we have a farmer. And that is from basically a rural area. So in our case, how we are thinking this GNI, obviously in a customer support, which is, because we are in a fresh fruits and vegetable, and this is not manufactured. This is something which is growing on the field. And let's say today you have a rainy weather, so the quality of the vegetable will not gonna be good. So you get lots of complaint, and maybe the contact rate is very high if I compare to other industry. So one of the major project which we are doing in JNI is basically automating this customer support. And then right now we have a 2 type of farmer. One is a progressive one, and another one is a marginal farmer. The progressive farmer who are basically eager to learn technology. But the marginal farmer, they are basically the small scale farmer who has a I will say 1 acre or 2 acre land and not very well versed with the technology, but they still want to do business with us. So right now we have a ground team for them who help them to basically connecting with us and how they will sell on our platform. So can we develop something for them that interaction should be so much simple with the help of JNI. Let's say something they are saying, "Aaj kya kya khareed rahe ho?" Yeah, in a very simple Haryanvi language, or when we will go in a because in Delhi NCR, around Delhi NCR, you have we procure from Rajasthan, we procure from Himachal, we procure from Punjab, we procure from Agra.
Got it.
And everyone is a different local language. So how you can make that interface so that we can interact with them.
So we'll talk about that, because local language is so important. And there I would imagine, from a Google perspective, scaling up some of the work that is being done, how could that be possible? How could that be scaled up with some of the segments that have been mentioned? What would you say?
So I think generative AI at a stage right now is, I like to call it the beginning of the beginning, to your question. I think we're all learning. We've talked about use cases. There are some other aspects to this, apart from the fact that we are all experimenting with use cases. One of them is training and learning. While there is, AI is supposed to help us learn, but learning AI itself, we need a lot of training and resources. The other aspect of AI that we have to talk about is that this is very resource hungry. And there is a lot of intensive hardware requirements that have to be taken into account. The third aspect we have to talk about is security. And look, all of us visualize generative AI in our own personal lives with, okay, so help me write a poem, or help me do this homework, or help me write this assignment. But actually, when you look at it from an enterprise perspective, all of what we heard from our panelists here is that there are some real business considerations, and everybody's trying to optimize or make something more efficient for their customers. Some people, we've not talked about this, but I'm sure this panel is also thinking about how to make their employees more productive, so sort of do more with less. And I think all of that will come into play as we learn. The other thing I think it's to keep in mind is that we are a very impatient generation. The whole concept of generative AI is very recent, right? And here we are saying, oh, so there's nobody ready, everybody's experimenting. In the past few years, when I was growing up, it would have taken 5 years to come to this stage. And we've probably taken 5 months to come to this stage. So I can tell you that every CEO in India has cut a check to their company, and they're thinking about generative AI. They're saying, okay, here are your resources, here are your engineering teams, this is the money, go make it happen. So everybody is in a rush to make it happen, everybody's trying to get it enterprise ready, and I think everybody's trying. So it's a lot of innovation being put to work. The other interesting aspect about AI is that every week there's a new model, right? And models are learning and they're getting better every week. So as an AI practitioner, I can tell you, or someone who's in the middle of it, is that learning and keeping pace with this is also a task. Now I'll come to your question about how do we make it scalable. I think it will scale on its own. We'll all find use cases that are relevant in our industries, that are regulated in an appropriate manner. There will be other considerations that we will have to think about. AI will bring in things like, we've talked about hallucination of the models, etc. But it'll think about things like biases, right? We will have to be inclusive. We will have to train our models to not have biases. We will have to watch for biases. It's a very important aspect. And Google, as a company, believes very thoroughly in the responsible AI concept. And I think it's a very important topic to talk about. We can talk about bias for a long time, so I won't go deep, but I guess everyone understands. The second aspect is that you have to do something for a customer that adds value to them. Either you are reducing the time that they need to take to wait for somebody on a call center. I'm sure you're thinking about that. Either it is about telling them what to buy in a simpler manner, basically improving their journey and their experience. And then the second thing we will talk about is how to monetize all this. And I'm sure we're all learning, and there's a lot of work happening on that aspect as well. But overall, it's a very exciting time. We are in the middle of it. Every customer conversation that we go to is around AI. We're all learning, we're all training ourselves, we're all working with customers. Lots of proof of concepts happening. Many of them already enterprise ready and being tried. Some still being worked out. And I'm sure the human innovation spirit will continue. I personally don't believe that AI is going to take all jobs. I think what will happen is we will all learn to work with AI just like we learn to work with computers or with software or with the internet. Right? When I was a kid, people talked about computers coming and taking jobs away. It never happened. But we will all have to learn and do our jobs differently. So there is a lot on this topic. I'm glad we are in this age where we're having this opportunity. Things will leapfrog very fast as well. Like I said, models are coming up very often. The other interesting thing I want to bring up to this panel is that this is not about a model or a technology. There's going to be a lot of innovation that will happen around open source. Most enterprises would like not to go with just one model, but with many specific models. We at Google believe in the term called model garden, wherein we believe that one large LLM model sitting outside of enterprise is not going to solve your problem. You will have to have data flowing in one direction, wherein you don't want to send your data out to that model because it will learn and it will keep your confidential information in check. So you want to keep your data with you. And you want to have more and more specific business industry level type models, which will be, for example, for fintech or for customer service or for fraud or for things like that, that we will work with and the industry will work on. And then the best of both worlds, which is keeping your data secure, but working on specific models. By the way, you also want to keep cost in mind. You can't run a huge model for every small use case. You also have to be careful about how much capacity, tech capacity you're using. So I'm sure there's a lot of architecture conversation that you're all thinking about. Those are some of my thoughts at this stage.
So Barrie, how does the tech function reimagine in the light of the opportunities that are opening up? What would you, as someone who's talking on behalf of Elastic, suggest to the tech minds?
Look, I think it's been a very interesting week for me. I've probably been doing business in India for just a little under 20 years, and just through a 7-year assignment in Microsoft in New Zealand and COVID, I've been kept away from India for about the last 8 years, and this week has just been a real eye-opener for me. To see in that 8 years that I've been away, how much technological leapfrogging that India has done compared to the West. I was joking with Neeraj, sort of the last time I was in India, we were talking to customers and looking about use cases in the UK or the US, and we were highlighting what customers were doing in those countries. I'm going to be flying out of here tomorrow with, hey, we need to be looking at use cases in India because of the scale, the velocity, and the technology that we're seeing in India. And I think all the panelists are right. I think we're at a really pivotal point in the industry, and I think generative AI is going to be a real turning point for the industry. And I think everyone has mentioned it. I think it's really doing a lot of discovery and understanding the use cases that generative AI can help add value to organizations, whether that's more customized, searches, customized tailoring of services to your customer base, whether it's looking at creating new revenue streams. Our friend at Arti Bartel, the telcos are now expanding their businesses into banking, into microfinancing, into streaming. So I think it's really looking at, and Amit mentioned it. It's really around. Okay, it's a great new technology, but how do we harness it, and how do we look at sharing with our customers how they monetize that and add increased value to their business, but provide increased efficiency and services to their customers.
Okay, so the point that you mentioned is also about the data and how much data is open to going from one place to another. So there is this challenge of India's new laws are coming in, for the data protection laws are coming in. What challenges anyone would like to mention? Any challenges that you'd like to mention? Funny?
Yeah.
Short answers, so that we get more in.
If I may, actually, just
Sure.
even before going into challenges, one interesting point in this is, I think Amit was speaking about it. The seminal moment in AI has been there for 3 decades. The seminal moment in AI actually has happened a few months ago, right? I think when really, the competition heated up, and I think technology kind of in the form of generative AI, has captured the imagination of many people, right? I'll tell you, right? And I can speak for many CTOs. There is a big FOMO out there, right? Fear of missing out, right? Crap, am I ready for this moment, right? Is my data ready for this moment, right? Are our systems ready for this moment? What are the use cases? How actively am I thinking, right? Right? Do I want to, right? Who else is going to kind of, just leapfrog me because, right, step is not there. So it's a very interesting moment, right? I think it does create a pivotal opportunity for us. I think there are so many use cases. And I'll also say this, most of us here at this table, 1.5 years from now, right, 2 years from now, we would actually have many more use cases, real, serving, making a very meaningful impact. And in this 1.5 years, a lot of these challenges that you're referring about, right? Data sourcing, right? Privacy aspects of things, right? Hallucination that you're talking about, bias, which is a very important thing. Your output in AI is only as good as actually the data you feed into it. So it's like our upbringing, right? You grow up within an environment, your view of the world becomes that.
Correct.
And your models, actually, which are making human-like, their view of the world becomes based on what is actually fed into, right? And what happens. All of these actually will start playing out in very interesting manners, right? So these technologies that are very empowering can also be very interestingly, leading us into directions that we might not be anticipating.
Yeah, in fact, this conversation was happening last week with some of our colleagues. I think data security comes in play when I think data bill is going to be, is just around the corner. One of the things which we all felt that there are certain events which are bound to happen in next few months, because all of us are trying a lot of stuff out of excitement. I think every company just wants to try generative AI. They want to basically get onto the path. And during this excitement, we are really not caring about what can possibly go wrong. There is something which is still yet to unfold. And certain events will only give the direction. So as Phani is saying, that things will become very promising in few years. But right now, we have to go through the pain where certain data breaches or certain data security violations will cause pain for certain people. So that is bound to happen, because I've seen people are putting up data in ChatGPT, and they clearly say that the data resides in my systems for 30 odd days. It is being used for training purposes. It's any confidential information which goes out over there is going to be reused. And I think, I don't know how organizations are putting up policies to cover up those grounds. So those things may create some scenarios. We have to be just open and accept these things in future, but be ready for the promising future. That's what my take.
Okay, Mayank, and you want to come in about the data, because I wanted to ask about the quality of data and the source for it as well. Because the source, I would like to believe, in India, let's say, we're talking in the Indian context, that is often a challenge in what kind of inferences that you can draw from the data. Would you like to comment on that?
See, I think you're right. The source of data is difficult to find out in a large language model, and there have been instances of copyright violations and other things. But in an enterprise environment, most of the times, the enterprises won't be using the public models and feeding their subscribers or their data into that environment. The language models will be used within the enterprise and retrained with the data that the enterprises have, and then used. And this is precisely for the reason that the data privacy and the other information should not leak out. So that's one of the aspects.
I'd like to add that this is where the Google Clouds of the world, the Azures of the world, and the AWSs of the world, even OpenAI, when they launch the enterprise offering, will come in, because there they can guarantee data privacy. There they have, they would put in contracts in place where this data is yours and only yours, and this would not be used for training. I think Azure already has similar offerings out there, and if you use OpenAI APIs directly, there is also this clause in there. So the enterprise use cases are just getting figured out. And I feel that within a year or so, you will actually see viable enterprise use cases live in organizations like ours, making a meaningful impact, which brings me to the real challenges that can happen. It's clear that many organizations will be able to figure out that you can automate many functions almost completely, and in many other functions, you will see massive productivity gains. So organizations will be able to scale without, let's say, hiring more people to scale, right? That brings in a big challenge of job impact. And what we need to be aware is, maybe we should be already focused. It's not very far out. We should already be thinking a lot about this and responsibly acting on reskilling and retraining the functions that are very likely to get impacted. Customer service being an obvious trend we are seeing here. Content generation, creatives. I heard a gaming startup who is generating in-game assets through generative AI, through college interns. So clearly, there are some functions that are going to be massively impacted, and that begs the next step is we should be forecasting this and planning ahead and retraining and reskilling the people there to maybe higher value add functions.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, from a Google perspective again, that retraining part that we're talking about, how should some people here who are being part of enterprises, how should they be looking at it? How should they prepare for that eventuality?
See, I think the retraining part is a gradual process, and first learning how to use AI, going through the process of figuring out what use cases, but then also getting ready with an open mindset. And I think it's a lot to do about mindset. I'll give you one simple example of security, cyber security, right? The fact is well known that you said the number of attacks has gone up, right? It's also well known that the sophistication of attacks has also gone up, right? Tremendously. However, on the other side, what generative AI, for example, does is helps you learn the patterns of the attacks, takes the human fatigue factor out of countering those attacks. It makes AI is capable of responding to attacks in real time, right? So the fact that AI is available to you, or generative AI is available to you, to get you your defense is more sophisticated and stronger if you use it well. So I think the mindset of having, let me use this thing for my benefit, and then figure out how to use it over a period of time, apply some creativity there. There is no standard answer. Because the attacks are also getting significantly stronger, but AI is also able to prevent a lot of attacks. And this is an ever-evolving field. I don't want to go into the technicalities of cybersecurity, but We have a very strong application of generative AI in just security as a topic. It is making defenses more robust. It's getting architectures much stronger, and it is helping attack, a sort of detect and respond to attacks in real time, which is very, very different from the past.
Himanshu, the point you were mentioning about bringing it to farmers in their language, that the stuff we spoke about, voice, video, and vernacular, how could that change the scale at which you work?
It's not only farmer, so it's basically the tier 4 consumer as well. So when you talk about tier 4 consumer or tier 3 consumer, so you require a different type of user interface. And let's come to the farmer, the marginal farmer, who are not able to operate generally any app. But somehow they are able to operate WhatsApp, and majorly on the voice and I will say not exactly in English, the English. And in fact in their own English, that's just not even Hindi. So can we, the AI will, obviously the Gen AI, let's make we are trying to build that system who can interact with them, let's say for their very basic queries. For in our use case, basically they ask, bhai mera payment kab aayega? When will I get my payment? Or at what rate today you are buying tomato? So they will not say like this. So they will say, टमाटर का क्या भाव है भाई? So that's how generally the farmer talk. And in fact, the tone is very specific, the reason wise. In Haryana, this tone will be different. And if you go in Rajasthan, the tone will be different. So can we make maybe a chatbot or a Gen AI-based system which is so intelligent that understand their crux, what they actually want, what the farmer is actually wanting, and our system is able to return some result to them. Let's say in a case of what कि भाई आज टमाटर देसी का क्या भाव है, तो our system should return like what is a rate of tomato for tomato desi and also what is the other we are buying for today.
Okay, so let's also get to the security part, because you mentioned about the security part. For the 24/7 business of tomorrow, and Barrie, I'd like you to come in here. For the 24/7 business, round-the-clock business of tomorrow, how does security come in? How does trust get ensured so that the consumer, the enterprise consumer, is comfortable?
Great question. I think it's one that's probably been debated a lot, around the boardrooms. I think, certainly from a Google, Elastic, and many of the other vendors are obviously building security into all of their products. I think there's the ethical side of things as well. I think it's ensuring that you're building up customer trust. And, to your point, the difficulty is that AI can create deep fake images. It's very good at creating authentic data that ultimately can confuse vendors and consumers. So I think it's a really difficult one to answer. I think it's one that we'll continue to work on. But I think it's incumbent on all of the vendors to continue to maintain the highest levels of security and ethics into developing AI, and that means making sure that we're working with our customers on a day-by-day, week-by-week basis to ensure that security is kept very, very high on the agenda.
I'd like to build on what Barrie just said.
Sure. Okay.
So Barrie highlighted the real challenges that are going to happen with generative AI. You can deepfake people, images. Another scenario is you can deepfake people's voice. You can clone voice. It's very possible in the near future. I'm speaking at an event, or some audio is there on the internet, my audio. Someone clones my voice through these large language models, trains it to speak in a certain way, calls my mom and said, hey mom, I'm stuck in a situation, can you send me some money? These kind of scenarios are very possible now with the advent of generative AI. But I look at it as in the positive side of things. If these negative scenarios are evolving, so also the tools and the technology to catch these things will also evolve. So the tooling will also change, where real time you will be able to know, hey, this call is a phishing call or a fake call. So interesting scenarios are emerging.
Himanshu, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. So
The first part of what you said is already happening, by the way. People are getting the calls.
Oh my God.
It started happening in India.
I think the use of AI in security is, I think, the two-way sorts, obviously. So the hackers can also use that. And let's say today we all use CAPTCHA or something, and someone train the model using Gen AI or something that can bypass the CAPTCHA. So this is a very basic example. And another one which this guy said, anyone can generate deepfake images or something. So, and pretend to your relative. So that's again another challenge.
So I would like to believe, Mayank and Anant, that in your cases, and you are particular, and why not even in financial services, you guys are large potential targets for such hackers to happen. How do things change the way you work? Anant, if you
Yeah. So I think in our internal meetings, we are saying it's not a question of how the attack will happen, it's a question of when.
That's not a very comfortable situation to be in.
We see attacks, almost hundreds of attacks daily happening, and it has just changed in a few years now. So it's about being prepared, securing your systems, hardening. Obviously, artificial intelligence plays a very important role in this, and there are companies which are working on pattern detection so that we can block the areas. There is also about doing war games, about saying if this has happened, then how will you react? What you should do. So this kind of simulation exercises is what also we are doing, and that's how we are preparing for ourselves. If this happens, then what?
Maybe I can quickly add. Sorry. So yeah, absolutely. Building on what Anand just said, you have to be prepared for that scenario. There are technologies that already exist, encryption being one of them, anonymizing your data sets being the other. You make sure your hygiene practices are in place. Internally, we also try and follow zero trust security, two-factor authentication all the time, zero trust security. You always make sure, even if people are inside our network, we still authenticate them and we still authorize them very regularly. So these kind of practices will help you be prepared for these kind of attacks.
Funny?
Mayank actually kind of called out a couple of elements. See, so technology empowers everybody, right? The one that wants to break the system, the one that wants to build the system. That's the base reality. And starting from the old day, right? I think a fort is built on a mountain. I think the threshold of conquering it is higher, right? And coming back to our systems that we build, it's actually kind of how tough do you actually have to work to kind of breach the security kind of is what becomes, right? And higher the empowerment on both sides, and both actually have to kind of level up, right? In our cases, I think two-factor authentication, zero tolerance, all of these actually become very, very important, and you actually kind of raise the threshold, right? And you actually have to be, now it becomes very important for all of us to kind of be even more mindful in understanding that the player is equipped with something powerful.
Saurabh, would you like to add?
I think one of the things which these rules are very basic. I think one of the biggest issues that we have seen where the security is compromised is generally not from external parties. Internally also it gets compromised. So we really need to build up our systems internally in such a way that the internal people also do not have access to some confidential information. So that's the only piece which I'll add. And what people have said is very much true. At the end, we live a life where we believe that no security is enough. Trust me, this is what we basically have it in mind.
You're scaring us.
No, that's the way we live, actually, because even if you try your level best, there's a possibility people can peep through your system and can attempt getting inside and getting access to it. That's a possibility. Every day things are changing, people are getting smarter, They are getting newer ways to get into system. I just give you an example, Log4j, you must have heard.
Yeah.
It's a utility which we all have been using for 14 odd years. Someone discovered an issue just a year ago. And that was an issue which could have gone into everyone's system and all the systems would have become vulnerable. So this is a possibility, but we, as Fani said, that we have to keep on raising our bar, we have to keep our systems stronger, and we have to make sure that every day we are redefining our security posture and becoming stronger. That's the way we have to look at the day.
Okay, so that gets me to the point of how does in the ever-evolving world, and Barrie and Amit, we'd like to come to you, sensitize the top management while, their job is to get business, make sure you're fully aggressive in getting the business. But security, maybe, is there enough to say that can be left behind, and in more so in the technology evolving space, Barrie?
I appreciate the concerns around security, and as I said, security has to continue to always be top of mind. But I think, some of us were discussing earlier on, back when cloud first came out, there were the same concerns and same scaremongering around security. And I remember vividly having a conversation with a customer who we'd been I was at Microsoft at the time, we'd been trying to sell cloud to for the last 6 months. And he just refused, said outright that he had massive security concerns about using the cloud. And I asked him, I said, have you ever emailed any sensitive documents? And he said, well, yes, of course. And I said, yeah, but you use Office 365. He said, yes. I said, well, that's the cloud. So, you know what I mean? Look, there's lots of smart people working on security in all of the products. Rightly so, we may not be there yet, but we'll continue to work on it. And I think it's been recognized up there with ethics that security and ethics need to continue to be top of mind for AI. So I think we'll figure it out.
You talk about Gen AI, I think after 6 or 7 connects, your models start hallucinating and then you get into trouble. So in that situation, you should take the feedback and give it back to the model to fine-tune the entire experience, but still keep it under observation. This is the way we have been running it for a while. So you can't just leave it on its own.
On a lighter note, you can tell the model to say it's okay, I don't know.
Yeah, that's the way most of the models do end up actually.
Yeah, Mayank.
So quality control on generative AI is going to be a massive challenge. Probably companies dedicated to doing this are going to be formed. As you correctly said, it's a massive challenge right now. AIs can hallucinate. Large language models are known to hallucinate. I believe you have to put practices in place, whatever generative AI models you're developing for your enterprise, for your team, you have to put some quality control practices in place that you would traditionally put even in software, traditional software. You would put maybe some humans in the loop to check the output of your models, validate them. You would support the answer through references of the actual document that the generative AI model is using. And maybe finally, you can automate this process through AI. There are agents, this is probably the next level. There is a concept called Auto GPT, where you fire multiple agents to do tasks. You can ask one agent to validate the output of one generative AI model. So multiple strategies in place, but I feel this is going to be a massive area for companies to focus on.
Yeah, please.
If I add one point, see. I was reading up recently, one of the disadvantages called out, right, I think, and the erroneous results happening kind of in ChatGPT and others is because it's trained on data from 2021. We are in 2023, and that's ancient, right? And very interestingly, I think when you are starting to rely on models and intelligence coming from the models, the element and the discipline that goes into retraining them constantly and keeping them current, kind of letting kind of other biases be corrected, right, I think. And so this is a very, right, it's not actually about, you're not done when you create a model, right? I mean, you really actually have to keep it relevant, current, and very meaningful, I think, with repeated retraining and process. And
Okay. One last question. Yeah, please. Please, if we can get the mic here, please.
Yeah, I'm Ganesh from Airtel Technology. My question is about the humongous power that is required for firing all these servers, GPUs, CPUs, and all. So what are we going to do about it? And with climate change being top of the order that is required by the entire world is focusing on that. So how is it that generative AI is going to be a real game changer? That is the first question. My second question is, unless there is real value to the user, end user, because we talked about multiple use cases, after 2-3 years, if you're not able to solve some real world problems, we'll be going back to square one. So what is that we are doing to make sure that we are on the right track so that we don't deviate?
Okay. So, Himanshu, you spoke of agriculture, but basic use cases. Would you like to just repeat? And then we'll probably ask Mayank and...
So about the use cases, so I will answer your second questions first. So what you were saying, like whether we are on a right path or not, and whether it's a real useful or not. So I can give you one example, but that's related to in our organization. So we were, that's a early success of ChatGPT, I will say, in our productive, it's increased our code writing productivity. So we were basically developing a new feature that was a reward wallet, and the someone requirement was something like that. The backend team and front-end team write code in a similar way because the app was supposed to function in an offline way. So but what's happened, the backend team write in another way and front-end team write in another way. And then we have a very close to deadline. So we sit together and what we decide, let's convert our Java code into a JavaScript code. And so it convert within a like 10 to 15 minutes. We just review the code, test it again, and it was working fantastically. So this is one of the success in a productivity part, but on a the end user conversation part. So when we talk about tier 2 and tier 3, tier 4 cities, so it's still somehow we are able to, the YouTube is there, and the Facebook is there, the WhatsApp is there, but there are various applications. In fact, the e-commerce is still there if I compare with the China or other country. And one of the reason I think is the user interface, because the running and ordering from a regular e-commerce app is not easy for that particular consumer. And if we are able to build a user interface using AI to them, and so that's gonna be a success. And that's gonna be, you are basically acquiring a new set of consumer for digital.
Okay. So I just want to add, in fact, you touched upon a very good point. There's some of the things which are being used in a good way, and they are adding a lot of efficiency into the system. One of the things which he shared about writing code or converting code from one language to another language. The Copilot piece that we use is extremely useful, and it's converting code from one language to another language. We had certain legacy of the code lying in the system, and we were not having enough time to move it to the new set of code. We just used Copilot, and it just happened as a magic. It's a magical thing. Like chat systems which are running in the organizations. A lot of us have spent time in building NLP stack to naturally process the language. And now you can leapfrog. You can largely leverage upon generative AI to handle all the conversation and get the right meaning out of the conversation and respond to the customer. On the other side, if the models are hallucinating, I think you can transfer it to an agent or advisor who can advise. Third, which is being widely used, it was one of the first primitive use case which was used by, in fact, all the companies, is generating content. And they all use it so widely for writing pieces, information that they want to publish on the website, or email content that they want to send. So a lot of lot of things have started adding a lot of efficiency and productivity. The only thing is that when you want to get into the core of your business and you want to be totally dependent on it, I think you have to just wait for some more time. That's the moral of the story.
Okay, so I'll let Barrie, you to have the final word. And you mentioned about seeing the change in 8 years. 8 years, did you say, that you haven't been to India? Yeah. Since we've spoken about so many tech issues, can you give us a sense of what the difference is? Where does India score, if you can also give a sense of that? What changes have you seen in these 8 years?
I think, this has just been a super interesting week in meeting with so many customers and so many partners. But what's blown me away has just been the scale, the velocity, and the innovation that's coming out of India right now. I mean, you're like, what, a week away from being the 4th country in the world to land somebody on the moon? I mean, who would have thought that 10 or 15 years ago of India as a country? So, look, I just commend, India and the, esteemed panel here, the partnership that we have with Google. Thanks to everybody in the audience for taking the valuable time to come and listen to this group of very smart people. But yeah, look, I think, oops, I think India just is going to continue to go from strength to strength. It's certainly in my region, so I cover all of Asia Pacific and Japan. It's certainly the fastest growing country in my region, and we're doubling down our investments in India as we speak. So just thank you. It's been a real pleasure. It's been a hugely interesting week, and I can't wait to come back again.
So it won't take 8 years for the next time.
It certainly won't take. Probably more like 8 weeks.
Okay, so thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of this conversation. Thank you indeed. And just to sum up some of the points, I just made a note. The security part, of course, is something that so important. Not being dependent entirely on technology is something that is so important. I mean, in the era of technology, not being dependent on technology itself and having some sort of a human interface. The training and learning, how do we find? So this is something that I couldn't speak. We didn't have enough time for that. How do we find the right set of professionals and a growing team of professionals who can drive through this change that promises to unleash? So that is something that will be important. The business applications and the use cases as they get wider, all of you will love to keep an eye on that. And also the value that it derives for the company. So the value becomes very important because that value is what the CEO is looking for. And all of you would, I'm sure, they're going to ask you questions about it. So thank you so much, everyone, gentlemen, for being a part of this conversation.